Hello and welcome to our nursing home.
Wait.
Your therapist turned 30 yesterday.
Woo!
I turned 30 about 2.5 months ago. So as you do when you turn 30, we moved into a nursing home for senior living care, and we will live out the remainder of our aged days.
Don't worry, the cats are still here. I'm sure you'll still hear them.
I'm sitting here with my wife, your elderly therapist. And we're actually going to be talking about the importance of kindness, the role that kindness plays as you develop as a child, and the role that kindness plays that you receive from people who love you in your life today, and how important it is for you to be kind to yourself, and ways that you can do that. So I think that this is a fantastic episode because this is what we've been talking about organically.
Yeah,
without
this
the
is what's
podcast
been
in
on our
mind.
minds.
Yeah, this is just what we're talking about, and god damn it, this podcast is basically for us to talk about what's been on our minds. So This is going to be very conversational, and I think that's the best way to do it. So, as always, my name is Bryce. I was born in the 20th century, in the 1990s, before the internet, and I married your therapist.
I really wish I could do voices for this. I'm Ash, and oh my god, I'm your therapist. The cat jumped. Please keep in mind that even though this is a podcast about therapy and mental health, it's not the same thing as or a replacement for therapy.
I don't know how I got that so botched. I did such a bad job.
Well, you starting to talk made me do it in the reverse order of the way that I normally do it, so you were actually correct.
Would you like to go again?
You just kind of threw me off. Oh, me? Go again?
You want to do your little disclaimer again without me?
They got it.
Okay. All right. Oh, man. We have a cat that's been super annoying today, but this is an episode about kindness.
Let's do it.
Talk to me about the rabbit effect.
Yeah.
Because that's where this kind of started, right?
Yes. So I have recently been reading a book called ADHD 2.0. I think it's a great book. I haven't finished it yet, but they have a lot of good information about ADHD, a lot of good tips for ADHD. They do talk positively about ABA therapy.
Boo.
Yeah, which is the therapy we've talked about in other episodes that's used for autistic kids, and it basically teaches them to not be autistic. But it's a lie. You can't not be autistic.
The same person who came up with ABA therapy is the person who came up with gay conversion therapy. Exactly. Because as you know, with the right spells and potions, you can transform an autistic person into a non-autistic person, just like you can transform a gay person into a not gay person.
Exactly.
Easy peasy.
So don't love that they kind of talk about that in a positive light. They're talking about it honestly in a different context. Still don't love it. But everything else I've really enjoyed in this book. That said, they talk about two things regarding kindness that are really interesting. The first thing is the ACEs study. So it's a survey that was given out to tons of people. So sorry. That was given out to tons of people over a really long period of time. It's one of the longest studies of this nature that's been done before.
Like behavioral studies, basically.
Mm-hmm. And I think the longest one. And it's a survey. It might be 9 questions, maybe 11 questions, but it's about traumatic childhood experiences. And when people have a higher ACE score, it negatively impacts a lot of things down the road.
Oh, so the higher the score, the more negative things that happened to me as a child, or traumatizing things?
Exactly. Okay. The more things you've checked off on this list.
High score.
Yeah, that's.
I won the ACEs competition. I'm the ace. I won.
Exactly. You don't want to win the ACEs challenge, but
what kind of questions are they looking for? What's the kind of trauma?
It's stuff like, were you abused? Were you in different types of abuse?
Did you grow up in a upper middle class suburban neighborhood, but the other kids in the neighborhood weren't homeschooled, so they were kind of mean to you and wouldn't let you like ride your skateboard on their ramp in their driveway?
Price. Yeah, that's exactly a question on there. Yeah,
I figured, because that cuts deep for a lot of people, you know?
It's like abuse, witnessing abuse, having at least one parent who drinks or deals with substance use, that sort of thing. Basically things that make your home environment not safe.
Okay.
Not a happy place to be. And it impacts a lot of things long term. They found that it was one of the biggest indicators of future health, longevity, occupational success, income, leadership ability, and general happiness.
Okay, that just seems like a great, like when you read it off like that, rattling off that list, yeah, these are things that are like quality of life. But let's take a step back on that fucking list for a second. You said longevity, like literally how long somebody's going to be on this planet.
Yep.
You talked about health, like how healthy their physical body is.
Yeah, like it relates to things like autoimmune disorders
Wow.
and, major illnesses that people deal with over
like
the course of their
leadership
life.
ability, the ability to go out and like lead other people. Especially for me, that's like that's something our business environments really respond well to. So all of this is like income potential.
Oh yeah, well I mean
potential.
it's literally talking about income as well.
Man.
That it impacts income. Yeah, think about how many job, not applications, but postings will talk about somebody with strong leadership skills, even for more basic level jobs. We'll be talking about.
So when you
that
hear
sort of thing.
people talk about privilege, this is what they're talking about. This is like, I grew up in a home that wasn't as traumatizing as like other homes.
Yeah.
Therefore, I had inherent opportunities and I'm able to live a healthier, happier life because of something I had no control over. You don't control the situation you're born into.
Exactly.
But folks who were born into a home that was like maybe a broken home or an impoverished home or a home that was afflicted with addiction, they're going to have a tougher time in life, even if they get out of that.
Yeah.
Even if they break free from wherever they're at and go and try to do something better for themselves, they're always going to have that shadow.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not about your life while you're in that environment. It's about your ability to live your life outside of that environment.
Man, that's incredible.
It's super impactful. I heard about that for the first time at the that like week-long training I went to as a sexual assault victim advocate. Was the first time I'd ever heard of the ACE score. And you don't need a very high score for those things to... It's not like if you have all of the things on this list, you're likely to have that. I'm trying to remember the cutoff right now, and I think it's like a 3 or a 4. Like if you have just a couple of the things on this list, you are significantly more likely to deal with these things down the road. But there's some good news. The other thing that we've learned with this whole study, because it didn't just measure those outcomes, it studied protective factors as well. Was there any way to prevent this? Was there something down the road that like lightened the effect of this? And it all comes down to, well, what the researcher literally described as love. That if you have somebody who shows you kindness, who shows you that warmth, when you're a kid or later on down the road, you're able to turn a lot of those things around.
So if you're
given
looking
a
to
much
overcome,
different chance at success.
Right. So if you're looking to overcome a difficult childhood, the best factor for success is, do you have people in your life that love you and are kind to you?
Exactly.
Man.
So you asked about the rabbit effect.
Yes.
That's the next study that they talk about. So they're talking about this within the context of having ACE scores and having all of this. But kindness changes our life. It changes our brain and our body in a fundamental way. So this study was just so great. But they were studying rabbits who were eating a really high-fat diet. So they're feeding these lucky rabbits.
The happy, chunky rabbits.
Happy, chunky rabbits eating this super high-fat diet. And it's a study to learn about like cholesterol and the impact on your heart.
First of all, this is going to be kind of weird. I'm grateful for the results of a lot of these studies that are conducted on animals, like, because they have benefited humans with that information, and we've been able to like make better decisions as a species. I am like weirdly uncomfortable with the thought of these studies being done on animals, in the same way that I'm weirdly uncomfortable with like the raising of millions of animals just to slaughter them and eat them. But I do eat meat, so maybe I'll just shut the fuck up.
Yeah, I feel like that's a whole different topic that maybe isn't even for this podcast.
No, yeah,
But
I just wanted to
I
say,
understand.
I'm not thrilled about this, but I do acknowledge that, like, every one of us benefits from a lot of these studies.
Yeah. It's
Not
really,
the just objective abuse ones. That's not what I'm, like, qualifying here. I just
Yeah.
mean, like, studies that are conducted on animals.
yeah,
in general.
absolutely.
Yeah.
No, that's always a tough topic. I remember in school, because we do a lot of learning about animal research, and it's always like, it's not fun to hear about. Anyway, these bunnies were fed this really high-fat diet, and they ended up, obviously, with these really fatty deposits on their body and around their heart and everything. But there was one group of bunnies, a random group, not, a control or an experimental group, just part of this big group of bunnies that's all being fed this diet, who had 60% fewer fatty deposits.
They were eating the same.
Eating
the diet was the same.
living the same environment, same stuff is happening, nothing was different, same type of bunny, everything. And 60% less.
So what was different with this group of bunnies?
Well, now the research turned into what the hell happened to them.
Yeah.
Like, we were studying this one thing. What the hell happened to this one?
Right.
Are they, like, secretly exercising at night or getting an extra carrots? Like, what's going on?
Yeah.
And no, there was a lab tech. So usually lab techs will be the ones caring for the animals in this study, who treated them like her pets, didn't feed them differently, didn't exercise them differently.
Like, followed the rules.
But just loved them. She would talk kindly to them, and she would hold them lovingly, and she spoke really sweetly to them and treated them like she adored them.
Aww.
And that was the only difference that they could find, that these bunnies were loved by her. And that made all the difference in this physical outcome of the study.
So that kicked off a lot of research to that end, I'm guessing.
Yeah, so it kicked off a lot of research. I think that it actually describes maybe a whole series of studies that ended up being done to study that effect. But yeah, the rabbit effect, this kindness, like, literally changed the physiological structure of these rabbits. And we know that kindness and love do the same thing for people.
And that was the only variable in that
It was the only variable. So I love that study. It was so good.
Well, ever since every night you hold me and you say nice things to me.
I tell you how beautiful your ears are and how fluffy your tail is.
And it's been the best weight loss plan I've ever been on. I'm so much healthier now. Thank you. I just love that it's, like, kind of proven then that having someone who's showing you kindness and love has, like, a measurable impact on your physical health.
Yeah.
Not to mention your mental well-being, which we all assume, like, the mental well-being, that makes sense. But, like, I'm physically healthier, and the only variable is that somebody's nice to me.
Yeah, I'm, like, less at risk for disease because somebody's kind to me.
And I think that, like, we see that, you and I have seen that in our life, where we know people who are, like, very sick because they live very hard lives. Mm-hmm. And they're not treated well by the people in their life, you know?
Yeah. That's one of the biggest factors that I think about when talking to clients, is how many clients don't have a support system at all. I think about all the ways that, like, you and I struggled during our lives and some of the very real hard things that we went through. But for so long, you and I've had each other. And I always have somebody who's interested in hearing and genuinely hearing about how I'm doing.
Yeah.
And who notices when there's a change in me, and who's nice to me even when I'm, like, mean to me.
Yeah.
And that's been true for a long time now. I know that has changed and effectively, like, saved our lives to have that sort of support.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And I think about how many folks I work with or have encountered that literally do not have another person who tells them kind things when they're struggling.
And I'd imagine that's a huge part of how you support your clients.
Yeah,
It's just by being kind to them.
I think is the most important thing that I do for my clients is that there is just this impenetrable wall of kindness.
Yeah.
Like, something else that we've been talking about is that if you say, you know, the way that you treat yourself matters. And if you say unkind things to yourself, it's like hearing it from another person. And so they might be surrounded by...
Whoa. Okay. I don't want to brush past that. If I say something unkind to myself, it is like hearing it from another person. Explain.
I cannot remember where I first learned this.
Okay.
I'm a little bit frustrated. I would like to be able to remember where I first learned it. I'm sure that I could Google it and figure it out. But I read somewhere that our brains can't really tell the difference between saying unkind things to ourselves and having an external person say unkind things to us. It's the same way in that if you go through, I think it's related to, if you go through a breakup and you stalk your ex on social media every day, your brain can't tell the difference between that and physically seeing that person. And think about it. That makes sense. Biologically, our brains were developed way before our phones were around.
Right.
Our brains have not developed in the era
There
of
hasn't
having...
been a software patch update for the brain tissue.
We're really waiting that moment. But your brain has developed in being around people in person. I was even talking to somebody the other day who's dealing with a move, and it's brand new to human history that we can move across a country or across the ocean like that.
Yeah.
That for most of human history, you're around the people that you're around. And it's like anticipating a death to think about having somebody be apart
yeah, it's
from
such
you.
a permanent life, like insignificant change in your life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's why we have to be so intentional about those things. But because of the way that your brain's developed and the fact that it's developed well before, social media, when you pull up a picture of your ex, your brain can't tell the difference between that and like seeing your ex. And imagine how difficult it would be to get over a breakup if every day your ex like came and knocked on the door. I was like, hey, just thought we'd chat for a little bit. I wanted to give you an update.
Wanted you to see all the stuff you're missing out on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
Man.
if you're stalking your ex, be nice to yourself. Don't do that. But when you're hearing things, like our brain has a hard time differentiating between this internal and external world sometimes.
Wow.
And so if you're constantly saying mean things to yourself, picture somebody else walking around you saying mean things to you all day. Wouldn't that impact you? And you talking to yourself that way has the same sort of impact.
And when it's yourself, you can't be like, well, you don't know me. Like when I insult myself, it's so accurate.
It's so personal,
Yeah,
right? Like
I
you
know.
get right at the core.
I'm like, oh, that's the thing I'm specifically hurt over. Like you're stupid and you're fat. Like, oh, how'd you know that really hurts my feelings?
Exactly. You can't even brush it off.
That's the area I am sensitive about. No.
Yeah, you can't even brush it off. It's like that person doesn't know. Like they know. And you're stuck with you all day long. So back to about other clients, as I'm sitting with clients, I know that sometimes I'm that only voice in their life that's being kind. And that's really, really important. You need that voice. You need a lot of those voices. And I hope that in therapy and listening to things like this, where we speak really kindly about you, when you're filling up your brain with that, you're starting to change that internal monologue.
Well, I really roll my eyes when people tell me to like do affirmations. Because y'all gonna buckle in. This is about to get really arrogant, okay? But I'll just tell you how I feel. Because I'm too smart. I'm too smart to do a fucking affirmation. I feel like really low IQ people do affirmations. And that I know that's not true. I'm showing my ass right now. But what we're learning, what you're telling me is like, no, like doing that actually does something. It's not just like a fucking dumb exercise that your therapist tells you to do because she's out of ideas.
Yeah. Well, I guess you could like, I don't know, say something nice to yourself.
Say something in the mirror. I like look in the mirror and I'm like, hello, old friend. This is about to be some bullshit.
Buckle in, buddy. I got some things to say. I've been fucking up my life recently and I hate you.
But you're saying like our brain actually hears that. Like, we
Yes.
actually can respond to that in a real way.
I have a for instance.
Okay.
So, yes, our brain actually hears and responds to that. Affirmations also take time. Yes, when you so affirmations aren't for everybody. If you've tried affirmations and they're not for you, that's allowed. But affirmations take time. You can't just do it once. Think about how many times, probably a day, you tell yourself mean things, and you keep telling yourself and keep telling yourself and keep telling yourself, and then you look in the mirror one time and you're like, you're a badass bitch, and you walk away and like you don't believe it because you go back to saying the same old things about yourself. You have to do it consistently. You have to do it like every time you look in the mirror and see yourself. You have to do it all the time so that it starts to come in. So my example is that I've always struggled with body image issues, and in the last 2 years,
give or take,
2.5 years, you and I think have been like confronting some of our body issues and that sort of thing. And every time I tell myself like, ugh, I hate my body, I don't, whatever, I don't feel comfortable in it, I always tell myself, no, I love my body. And I don't believe it. For 2.5 years, I don't believe it. Every time I say it, I'm like, yeah, okay. But it's our little secret that I don't believe that at all. And the other day, I forget what was happening. Maybe I had a tough day at the gym, or something was going on with my body, and I was going to get in the shower, and I was thinking to myself, and I went, oh, I hate my body. And before I could even form a conscious thought, from somewhere in the back of my mind, I heard, no, I don't. I love my body. And I meant it.
Wow.
For the first time.
That's
and I've
so
had good
awesome.
body moments between now and then.
Oh, yeah, you
But
know.
but for the first time, that thought came up, and without me having to try, no, Ash, you love your body. That voice was there. And that's what affirmations do. And that's what having an internal voice or an external voice consistently replace that like mean inner monologue you have going on.
Let's use the body example for a minute.
Okay.
I'm going to just talk for a second.
Yeah, do it.
I have a lot of thoughts here.
Okay.
Being hot or sexy really comes down to confidence, right? How hot is Jack Black? You know what I mean? Like, that man knows himself and loves himself, and everybody loves him for it, right?
Yeah.
Like, he's just throwing it out there. Mm-hmm. No, he doesn't give a fuck. Like, that's confidence, right?
Yeah.
And I am like plugged into a lot of weightlifting, which is we're lifting little weights.
We're really strong.
We're just really strong little guys. We lift weights, and something that I've been learning is that there's no threshold where you're like, I look good now, and you get this ticket, and you're like, you're sexy now, congratulations.
Yeah.
Like,
it happened.
some of the biggest fucking guys I've ever met are some of the most insecure people I've ever met. And that's like the fact that they're so strong or cut up is evidence of that.
They're literally some of the top, strongest people.
Yeah.
And like they don't believe that of themselves. They like don't feel good about themselves and their body.
And there's so many people that I've known who've gone on these incredible fitness journeys and come out on the other side of it like no more confident, even though they have accomplished so much.
Yeah.
And it's just not a one-to-one relationship of like confidence and like capability or what you actually look like.
Yeah.
And it comes down to that narrative. What are they telling themselves? And so many folks use that negative narrative to drive themselves to success. You fat piece of shit, get one more rep in.
Yeah.
Well, you're always going to be a fat piece of shit if that's what you're using to propel yourself forward. There's no line where you're no longer a fat piece of shit unless you just decide, hey, I'm not. I like the body I'm in. And what's nuts is that there are folks who have never set foot in a gym who are very confident in their bodies and they're fucking smoking.
Yeah.
And it has nothing to do with the amount of weight they can lift or how long they can run on the treadmill or what their BMI is. It has everything to do with how they feel about themselves.
Yeah.
And that's amazing. That's
Yeah.
incredible because it comes back to that like self-narrative. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. The things that we tell ourselves matter. And we have, I was kind of talking about this last week, but we have a bias toward the things that we like put our time into. But we specifically have a bias toward loving the things that we choose. There was another study
Ooh.
where people were asked to pick out like a painting, some piece of artwork for their home. And one group of people were told, if you don't like it in a week or in a couple weeks or whatever, you're going to be able to come back and pick out a new one. But it should be something that just makes you so happy, that fits really well into your environment, kind of pressure.
Yeah.
Pick out one, but you can bring it back. And another group of people were just told that they could pick it out and it was theirs forever. Same thing. It should represent their place. It should be good. And the people who were not allowed to change their minds liked their art much more than the people who were allowed to change their minds about it. We like the things that we choose.
Something about arranged marriage in there. Just saying, arranged marriage, those fuckers don't get divorced most of the time. They're like, Pikachu, I choose you, motherfucker. Like, we're in it to win it. You know?
Yeah. It helps that can also be based on a lot of different factors, but for sure.
But y'all standing at the end of the aisle waiting for your bride to walk down, swiping through Tinder. Like, y'all doomed for a failure, man. You're doomed.
Oh, no. Yeah, we like the things that we choose, and you have to like keep choosing yourself. Now, I think that leads to boundary setting. I think that leads to, a big one, being able to receive kindness. A lot of times when we've grown up in a really difficult environment, a thing that comes along with it is that letting people close to us feels like opening ourselves up to threat. That when there are people the narrative from when we're little is when there are people close to me who I trust, those are the people who hurt me. And so if I never trust anybody, I'll be safe.
I can't be hurt. Yeah.
And that's people will be in their old age carrying that belief with them. Like it lasts and it lasts.
It's like saying, fire burns me, so I will never seek comfort by a fire, even though I'm out in the woods at night. Mm-hmm. It's the thing that you need.
Yeah.
Can also be the thing that hurts the most, right?
Absolutely. And yeah, that can be a really
that fire analogy was.
It was great.
It was pretty. It was pretty fucking fire.
Oh no.
I stand by that.
Without it, you'll freeze. Without love, it will harm you. Like we're talking about with the ACE study, you won't live as long. You won't be able to have as much success. Like we need to be able to accept those things, but a lot of people cannot.
And in order to view yourself as worthy of love, you have to be willing to show yourself love.
Exactly. So I think sometimes an inroads to that.
God, I love it when you're like, exactly with me. I'm like, fucking nailed it. Fucking got it. I'm in there like swimwear.
A lot of times I think that people who grew up in an environment like that struggle to receive love. So even when somebody kind comes down the road, they're not able to receive it.
You remember that dude on Vine who would go around like Vine? Remember 2013? Do you remember that? You remember that app, Vine? The 7th app?
Yes.
The grandfather to TikTok, you remember? And he would go around and he was like, why are people so afraid of love? And then he'd go up to like random people on the subway and scream, love! And then, fuck!
Yeah, sensory nightmare.
Yeah, it was like assault, basically.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's... why are people so afraid of love, Ash? Why?
They've been hurt by it. They've been hurt by the thing that they were told was love.
Oh, that's an important distinction. The thing they were told was love.
If your parent treated you like that, that was not a loving way to be treated. A lot of times I'll have people as an adult like picture a little kid that same age. And it's so hard to think about showing that kid, a little kid, if you think about like being treated harshly at like 8 years old and picture an 8-year-old, it's hard to even imagine treating that 8-year-old that way. But then we continue showing ourselves what we received as love, what we were told was love. And then when it comes down the road, we don't trust it. We don't want something that could ever feel that way again. So we block it out.
Yeah.
And that keeps us from this real healing power of kindness.
What is love? Baby, don't hurt me. Don't hurt me no more.
Yeah.
Sorry, sometimes I have a song on my heart. So what do we say to the listeners who were like asking, how can I show myself some love? Not what I was told was love.
Yeah.
But how can I show myself love?
I think the first step is just to acknowledge that process, to acknowledge the things that we've talked about, and to acknowledge why you might be turning down love. I think a lot of people will feel like, I just can't do relationships well. I just can't do the stuff I'm supposed to be able to do. And it's because I'm stupid and I'm hard to love and I'm a burden. And I'm all the things that we were told by the person who was supposed to love us in the first place. And just know that, like, that's not you. That narrative came from somewhere else. And that was never fair or okay. And just what?
I was just like, what if somebody's like, but I am stupid, but I'm like objectively stupid. I don't think that's helpful. I was just laughing, like just picturing somebody in their car on their way to work, like, but I am stupid.
I can objectively say that you are not.
How, you can objectively say that anybody listening is not stupid.
Yeah, I know that for sure.
How do you know that? That sounds like a really fucking mean thing to listen to say. Like, you know, our listeners are not very smart, Ash. That's not what I mean. But like, you're so confident in that. What are you really saying?
Well, we specifically measure like what it means to be smart. First of all, by IQ tests that were shockingly normed on a very specific population of people.
What population could that have been, Ashley?
I think really marginalized communities.
Right.
And gay folks, women for sure, black and brown folks were none of those people.
Do you mean to tell me that once again a bunch of straight white guys got together and were like, we're the best, so the intelligence test can be based on what we say?
That's exactly what I'm saying.
Damn.
So once again, the IQ test.
What was your IQ score again? Because you took an IQ test once. Could you remind us?
I'm a very smart straight white man. One of the very, very smart straight white men.
You had an IQ score of genius.
So did you. Would you always leave out of that story when you tell it?
It's
and
not
I'm
relevant.
not having it anymore.
It's not
Here's
important.
how I know that you are not stupid, dear listener. First of all, stupid is a slur that was used to define groups of people that people in power disagreed with and didn't like. So abolish that word. We hate it. Second of all, IQ tests, things that are supposed to measure intelligence, once again, normed on a group of people who thought a certain way, who were raised a certain way, and that's not fair to you. And lastly, there are a lot of different types of intelligence. And if you don't feel like you were smart in school, if you don't feel like you got it, that's because school was an experiment. We decided to do school one way. We had no research behind it. We just took a guess. And then we kept doing school that same way forever and ever until today. But the whole history of our education system was based on a guess. I think this would be good. Basically, I think this would raise really healthy workers. And it has nothing to do with intelligence. And if you didn't get it the way that you were taught, it's not because you're stupid. It's because our education system wasn't
perfectly into the mold that somebody else created.
It wasn't set up for your brain. So yes, I guarantee if you're listening to this, you're not stupid, and true intelligence shows up a lot of different ways.
I want to peel back the curtain a little bit on my experience with that, because I'm such a walking example of what can happen when somebody's educational experience is catered to them. Okay, I've had one standard educational experience in my life. It's when I started my master's degree, and I flunked out within a semester. There were a number of reasons for it, but one of the primary ones is that I am unable to learn in a traditional classroom setting. I can't do it. I can't focus. It's so fucking boring, and everybody else is just like lead weights in the bottom of the ship, just dragging us down with their stupid.
Nope.
their questions, and like people don't get it, and then this professor's having to like cater to like 30 people, and I'm just trying to move forward, and it was exhausting, and I hated it. The reason that was the first traditional educational experience I had ever had is because I had a very untraditional educational experience. I was home educated for all of my elementary, middle school, and high school years, and I did a non-traditional version of college where I was able to graduate young with a 4-year degree. because I did CLEP testing. So I took the final exam.
Which was like the grandparent of AP testing or early college. Yeah.
So effectively, it's you pay like $60 to $80. You go take the final exam for a college course without doing any pre-course work. And if you pass the exam, you get credit as if you had taken the course. I CLEP'd out of my college, my first 3 years of college, from the ages of 16 to 17. We call that weaponized ADHD. Because your boy can sit down and read a textbook in 3 days and then go take a test on that textbook, pass it, and then fucking forget everything that he read in the textbook. It was an extremely ineffective but exceptionally efficient method of getting a college degree.
Not a good way of like retaining long-term information. Great way of passing classes, but it was so shocking you didn't do well in the first experience that you had in a standard setting, because you had always been considered like brilliant. You did exceptionally well in school.
Yeah, I'm rolling into a master's program at 19 years old because I graduated with my 4-year degree when I was 18 years old. Everybody thinks I'm a genius. I'm starting to think that I'm a genius. Turns out I just have ADHD in an educational environment that was highly catered to my educational needs. At the beginning of the school year, my mom would set down the textbooks that I needed to cover on my desk and say, have fun. And I'd get them done in a radically quick amount of time and then just chill for the rest of the year, because that's how my little brain worked. And it was fucking fantastic. And there are so many people. I know that if I had been in a traditional educational setting, I would have really struggled.
Oh my gosh, you would have lost your mind in a classroom. I cannot picture you. You would have been in, I don't mean this to be unkind. I mean just like the things that make you great, the things that make you talented and skilled, you would have been in trouble all of the time for speaking up. The number of times, I didn't get in trouble a lot because I was such a people pleaser, but the number of times I had a teacher scold me for like correcting them. I'm autistic. I just think people would like to know the correct information, especially if you're a teacher. You seem to care about education. But like, I think you would be correcting people. You'd be up and moving. You'd be done with your lesson faster than anybody else and up bouncing around the classroom. And a teacher would have hated that. Yeah.
How many people's story could have been just like mine? How many people could think that they were geniuses coming out of high school and college, and they weren't? They didn't. Everybody told them how stupid they were.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. And gave them the opportunity. Okay, I'm sorry. We did a big diatribe there. I never thought I would share all of that on the podcast.
Well, here we are.
Yeah, here we are.
How can somebody accept love? What would I say to a listener? I think is where we started all of that.
You're right.
I think the first thing is knowing where those narratives came from, in that if you have cruel things to say to yourself and can't accept good things from other people, it's not your fault. That's the natural consequence of being raised in an environment that was unkind to you in some way. Is that you've internalized that. And getting to know where that comes from is a big step. And then,
you've got to acknowledge it first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the next things are choosing to tell yourself kind things even though they feel untrue. Something that a lot of people have found useful is treating yourself like you're your own best friend. Like, would I say this to my best friend? Would I say this to a person I really love and care about? Some people don't speak to their best friends in the way that made me.
You saw me start to grin.
To your best friends, and that's okay.
You saw me start to grin because I was just thinking to Christopher, like I would absolutely say this shit to him.
Yeah.
We're not very nice to each other, but it's fun. He does not listen to this podcast.
No, but you have to. Right. If that doesn't work, you're going to have to come up with a different scenario. But think of treating yourself like somebody else. I think that can be especially effective for like a people pleaser who's unkind to themselves. But think about how you would treat your own best friend if you're nice to your best friend. And start to speak back to some of those thoughts. Start to say something kind in return. Every time you catch yourself in the mirror, say something nice to yourself. even if you don't feel it. And it's that like choosing yourself, like with the artwork or whatever. It's like choosing to invest that time and kindness into yourself. And then the other thing is soaking in the discomfort of having other people be kind to you. Like just steep in that for a little bit.
It can be uncomfortable.
It can be so uncomfortable.
I was just telling someone a few days ago that who we were trying to do something kind for, and they were having a tough time kind of accepting it. And I was like, this actually weirdly requires some humility on your part.
Yeah.
To accept a gift, because it's your pride that's saying, no, I don't need the kindness. You know, I can do it without. Like that's a form of like maybe a pride that's like, I'm trying to protect myself and take care of myself.
It's certainly a form of self-protection.
Yeah. And I was like, you've got to be willing to like let your guard down a little bit here and accept it, you know?
Yeah.
And that can be a really tough thing to do.
Yeah. And if you are consistently unkind to yourself, I can't remember if we were talking about this last week or not. If you're consistently unkind to yourself, you can't turn around and really genuinely be thoroughly kind to other people. I'm not saying that if you're mean to yourself, you're an unkind person, because some of the nicest, sweetest people I know have a really unkind internal dialogue. That's not what I'm saying. But I mean that when you really get into it with somebody, when you really share a life with somebody, that internal stuff starts coming out, and you want to start working on that. Make that a place where you're cultivating kindness, so that when it flows out of you, it flows out.
And people are going to treat you the way you treat yourself, because you kind of set that expectation, right? This is how I deserve to be treated. And if your view of yourself is increasing, you know, and your opinion of yourself is increasing, that will better enable the people who love you to be able to do so.
Yeah, like I was saying before, it's the foundation of boundary setting. It's the foundation of being able to say no to things that aren't good or nice for you. Because you're like, oh, I don't deserve that. I don't want to be treated like that.
Right.
Yeah, that's a big deal. I think the caveat to this is that, what was I just thinking? I do not agree with the belief that like you have to be fully healed and be the best person you can be, yada, 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 before you can be in a relationship with somebody else.
Bro, we know that's true.
100%.
You and I
that's
know
not true.
That's not true. Oh my God, we were so broken when we got together.
I really believe that healing takes place within the context of relationships. And that's the whole thing that we're talking about today. It's not that like you can't love somebody else if you don't love yourself. That's not true at all. But you do have to start soaking in the discomfort of being around kindness. You do have to start challenging that. It takes intention.
Yeah. And I think that it's a way to show people who are showing you love. It's a way to be kind to them, is to let them be kind to you. It's reciprocal.
Oh, that's so true. That's such a good point that I think that we...
Thank you. Fuck yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
Fucking crushing it.
I love you so much, and I love watching you get excited. But I have to tell you, it wipes the slate clean. Every time you're like, yes, I'm like, well, that was it. I don't remember.
Reboot. No, it's important to... Being able to accept someone's love for you is a way of showing them love.
Yes.
It's all cyclical. It's all...
That was really something that I don't think that I got early on in my life or early on in our relationship.
Same difference at this point. We've been together for fucking forever.
It feels really good to get to show somebody love. And even though I don't think taking care of somebody has to be reliant, especially somebody who's going through a tough time, has to be reliant on receiving everything equally in return. That's not going to be able to happen with some of the folks that we care for throughout our lives. But man, it's really tough to continue to like show a lot of love and kindness to somebody who keeps rejecting it. It hurts, because anytime we're showing kindness to somebody, it's a vulnerability.
Yeah.
We're opening ourselves up. We're like, we're truly like opening ourselves up to that and letting ourselves be soft and letting ourselves be vulnerable. And when somebody turns it down, like, it's okay. I can understand.
And that brings up a really good point that we were talking about a little bit, is that if you're one of those people who wants to be like a bad bitch, tough, you rise above it. You are not drawn into these petty squabbles. Nobody can get the jump on you. Nobody can get you to react in a way that you're not cool with reacting. If you want to be the smartest, baddest person in the room, be the kindest person in the room.
You cannot get to a place of being like untouchable, of being like beyond that sort of stuff by being cold.
Yeah.
That starts to really take its toll on you.
Yeah.
That
cold-blooded killer kind of like, you can't affect me or whatever, you know?
Yeah. That's absolutely a defense. Behind that defense is a lot of softness.
Yeah.
And just allowing yourself to be soft in a really hard world, like,
people build walls to protect
strength.
something, right?
Yeah.
They build walls to protect something very soft and very, very, it has a lot of feelings. And, you know, the higher the walls are, the more feelings they have to protect, you know? But if you don't have walls like that, it's because you're open.
Yeah.
Because you have strength. You know who you are, and you have people who care about you, and you care about you.
Yeah.
So fuck this person who's being unkind to me. Like, it doesn't bother me, you know?
One of the really beautiful things I think I get to do as a therapist, I had a supervision today. I was meeting with my supervisor, and
how'd that go?
It was great.
Yeah.
And we were talking about, I was talking about what a gift it is to get to see clients who have been hurt a lot by other therapists in the past, who've had maybe anything from like good therapy that they just still don't feel like they're doing well in life, which can be tough, or maybe they've had really like harmful negative experiences or been given a lot of like negative labels and
you
that
get
sort
to
of
be
thing.
a part of like setting the record straight for therapy, right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
But something I get to do is really welcome people who I get to really welcome, like rejection. I get to really welcome folks who have a lot of anger coming into therapy, or who have a lot of past hurt and who have a lot of walls up. And I get to just like welcome in those defenses and walls. And I've had a couple of experiences starting with clients who just, they were there on purpose. They had signed up to come, but they almost acted like they didn't want to be there. And that's a really beautiful thing about therapy, is that it's not at all like being in an uneven, unfair relationship where your partner is really cold to you.
Yeah.
I get to just create like a furnace of warmth and kindness for somebody.
Damn. Okay.
I get to just like really, it costs nothing to me. Like I get to just
welcome to my kindness sauna.
Exactly. And I was talking today about some clients I've had recently who came in really hurt from past stuff, and what it's like to get to sit there and just like shine warmth on them for a little bit. And that I can really welcome the coldness that they bring. And my supervisor was saying, like, that's actually them being vulnerable in those moments. I was like, that is so true. That when somebody has been so hurt in the past and they show up and they're kind of baring their teeth a little bit, that's that vulnerability shining through. Like, they're not putting on a false front and like, yes, everything is perfect in therapy land, and I come in for an hour a day and do my act and then I leave and life goes back to being really tough. And that there's something really beautiful in getting to provide a space for people to authentically be hurt and upset and afraid to be there.
Well, I think this kind of stems from the fact that you call your clients your little babies.
They're my babies.
Yeah, you have little babies.
All of you listening, you're my babies.
She actually does refer to y'all like that. She always has, always will.
Yeah, I always refer to my clients as my babies.
I'll say, what's your schedule like for tomorrow? She'll be like, well, I have a baby at 11.
Like, I have 4 bebés.
I have 4 bebés. The first one's at 10, and the next one's at 11. It's very cute.
How is today? Great. My bebés are doing very well.
Bryce, I was just so proud of one of my bebés today.
What a great day. I love that. That's a gift that I get to do in therapy. When it comes to relationships, it's really important that we seek out vulnerability. It's really important that we allow ourselves, I think, to sit with the discomfort of kindness. Here's the thing, like, if you've been in a bad environment, you'll know when it's not safe. A lot of times our sense of safety gets mixed up.
Yeah.
But what I learned is that, like, that intuition is there.
Yeah.
We might have had to do a lot to push it down, but like we all have that. And you can trust that in yourself, and you can let yourself sit in the discomfort of receiving a lot of kindness for a little bit before deciding, okay, I need to take a step back. Okay, I need to,
And when you are showing yourself kindness, you'll better be able, I think to your point, to see and acknowledge what kindness is. And when you're not being treated kindly, you can say, hey, wait, actually, no. No to this. No, thank you.
That's so true.
And draw some boundaries.
That's how you'll recognize it.
They talk about, there's the phrases, kill them with kindness. And I think that what we're asking you to do is to...
Are you allowed to say this on a therapy podcast?
I want to say kill yourself with kindness, but I'm not. What I mean is kill the negative, angry...
Drown yourself in kindness.
Yeah. Push away those harmful thoughts and that narrative that you're worthless. Kill that with kindness.
Yeah.
Kill that with kindness.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, we have a few minutes left. I wanted to share something that's been on my mind quite a lot lately.
Okay.
And I think it's a way that I might encourage folks to be kind to themselves. It's, if you're feeling stressed right now, if you're feeling anxious, if you're feeling depressed, a lot of therapy, CBT is a type of therapy that I've been learning a lot about, cognitive behavioral therapy. Ashlyn does not practice cognitive behavioral therapy. The reason is that CBT, she's shaking her head, no, ponytail's looking fierce. The underlying philosophy is, okay, well, you're just having a negative reaction to your environment if you're feeling those things, so let's change your mindset.
Yeah.
And I want to assure you listeners...
Well, we saw a meme that was something to do with, like, maybe I can gaslight myself into feeling better, and then the next comment or whatever is like, wait, that's just CBT. And it is.
Yeah.
It's just like, no. You're fine. Why are you acting like you're not fine? You're really fine. And if you just believed that you were fine, you would be. And that's not true for a lot of people.
And it feeds into a power control tactic. Dare I say a police state. That's another conversation for another time. But it's basically get the fuck back in line. Shut the fuck up and get the fuck back in line. You're fine.
Yeah.
You're fine. And I want to assure you listeners, if you're feeling any of those things, stressed, anxious, depressed, I would say that I think it's reasonable to say that you're having a perfectly normal reaction to the world that you live in. Yeah. That you're not broken, that you're not worthless, that anybody in your shoes might feel that way. And the reason that I can say that with some confidence is because I've made some pretty serious decisions personally for my life. I've said it before. I've carried a flip phone for many years. I am not active on any social media with the exception of LinkedIn, which I need for my career. Mm-hmm. And I mean, like, including like sites like Reddit and stuff like that. I'm just not present on the internet in that way. And I got on Reddit the other day and just scrolled through like the home page. It wasn't even like an account that I used to have on there. It was just like pure unfiltered Reddit. Mm-hmm. Because Reddit's going through a lot of changes that are very interesting to me that aren't relevant to this conversation. But that's why I was on there. Mm-hmm. And I was on there, and tell them what happened when you walked in, like an hour after I had gotten on Reddit.
I walked in and I could immediately feel in the room that you were upset, as I do. Yeah. And I walked over and you had tears in your eyes.
I was crying, yeah. Mm-hmm. And I didn't even realize it until you walked over.
I thought you had gotten like a horrible email or something. I thought somebody had just messaged you and told you something very, very sad.
Yeah.
But rather than one person messaging you and telling you something very, very sad, 100,000 people had posted what is very, very wrong with the world, and that made you sad.
Yeah. It physically impacted me. I have just not been exposed to this stuff in a long time, and it blew me away how hard it was to just be online in any capacity for any amount of time,
Yeah.
which I am not. And to those of you who are, and to those of you who have to be for work, or that's just your life, I totally get it. And I'm not saying the solution is to like get a flip phone. I'm saying that you need to remember that shit is stressful. That shit is hard. And our little brains didn't get the software update to accommodate the fact that we would be hearing 24-hour news from around the world of everything that was wrong with the world.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's not important to understand about the Ukrainian and Russian conflict. I'm not saying it's not important to know about these like protests that are happening across the country. I'm not saying it's not important to know those things. I'm saying your brain wasn't wired to know those things. You weren't supposed to know about every wrong in the world. And so, of course, it's overwhelming. And it's what sells. It's what catches our attention. We're drawn to that, like moths to the flame.
If they can catch the survival part of your brain, if the survival part of your brain will go, what if something really bad might happen if I don't know this information? You will guarantee... One of the cats is doing something horrible right now. Alice, you're a nightmare. And I love you so much. I'm going to be really kind to you. Okay. If it can scratch that little like survival part of your brain, and that part of your brain goes, what if something horrible happens to me if I don't know about this?
Right.
You will guarantee click on that article every time. It's why negative headlines will catch way more views than the same exact story, but with a positive headline. It has to catch our need for survival.
It's most obvious on like local news stations, like, are your tires going to kill you? Are you driving on a death trap? And my grandma was like, leave it, we got to find out, like, what,
Right.
that's a little like on the nose, but like everything that you're getting hit with online is doing that to you. And so I don't know what the answer is. I know what the answer is for me, and it's fucking radical. I've had to make some serious life changes to accommodate the fact that I cannot cope. I cannot cope with that shit. I've had to like eliminate it from my life. And what I have found is that like looking around my life, the people in my life, and the issues that are happening locally and that are happening in my community are enough for me. That I can be an impact on the people that I care about, and I can have an impact on the community in which I live. And I am like adjacently aware of the other major headlines, because I'm just like, I'm not living under a rock, but I'm just not plugged into it 24/7. Be kind to yourself.
Yeah.
Be kind to yourself and be aware that these things may be hurting. And I think a lot of us expect to live happy and fulfilled lives, and we're drowning in misery. Mm-hmm. And there's dissonance there. And I want you to be kind to yourself over that dissonance. That's really what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
I've been thinking about that all week. Thanks for letting me have a moment.
No, it's really important. I don't think that the answer for everybody is going to be the ability to get off of social media.
And there's a lot of good to that stuff. Hell, we post reels on like TikTok, like
Right.
I can't claim like complete purity above all of this. I just, I think you need to be like critical in the way you think about this stuff.
Yeah. You should be careful what you curate, both in regard to not looking at the super harmful negative stuff that's just constant, and being able to slow down or block that, and also not looking at the hyper positive, like really what's it called?
Motivational
Isn't necessarily what I'm saying, although most of that stuff is probably a lot, but the just like sugary sweet stuff, the stuff that's just like, my life is perfect and everything is great, because that's not real either. And I think the more that we're in reality with people who are doing good work and caring about good things and making a good impact on their own community, that's like the stuff that you want to be connected with. You want real people doing real things. And then your real life also needs to be filled with real people doing real things and connecting with you.
Wow. So at the end of this conversation,
Mm-hmm.
the rabbit effect.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a bunny story. I got 2 bunny stories.
Okay.
Stories about bunnies. I want to tell them. They're both involve my grandmother. My mother was raised in poverty. My grandparents worked very hard, but they had to grow and produce a lot of their own food just to eat. They raised rabbits because rabbits breed like rabbits.
Just like them.
So they're a cheap protein source if you're into the whole eating animals thing. And my mother's sitting in their double wide trailer, and she says to my grandmother, "Mama, will you please pass the bunny?" And my grandmother says, "Charlotte, we do not eat bunny, we eat rabbit."
I love the dissonance there.
Yeah. Fast forward 30 years, I'm standing in my grandmother's kitchen, no longer in a trailer. They leveled up. What's up? And they're in a small house. And Mimi's making carrots to go with our dinner, and she says something I've heard for years from her, which is that carrots are really good for your eyesight. I said, "Mimi, why do you keep saying that carrots are good for your eyesight?" She said, "Well, you've never seen a bunny wearing eyeglasses, have you?" Which I'm just obsessed with, and I had to share.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a good one.
The rabbit effect, though. It shows, and the subsequent research that it inspired has shown without a doubt that having someone just being kind to you has an impact on your mental health and your physical well-being.
Yeah.
We've also talked about how growing up in an environment where you are experiencing trauma, whether it's through an absent parent, alcohol or drugs in your family, growing up in poverty, or any combination of any number of factors like that are covered in that ACEs score,
Right.
have a significant and palpable and trackable impact on your ability to be quote unquote successful in your life. And the only way to unfuck that situation is to have someone in your life who's showing you kindness. That's been kind of objectively proven.
Yeah.
I think subjectively that all makes very much makes sense to me.
Yeah.
But I think it's important that we're talking about research that's been done.
And I think it's surprising the extent to which those things play a role. I think intuitively we kind of know it's better if you had people who love and care about you, but loneliness kills in the same way that smoking a pack of cigarettes a day kills. That's a different study. It has a severe impact on you. You need community, you need people in your life, and you need people who are kind and lovely. And that's been shown again and again.
And that starts with you.
And that starts with you choosing yourself and being kind to yourself.
So maybe give those affirmations a try this week. Maybe start challenging those negative thoughts where I always fuck this up or I always mess this up. I think that you'll be surprised when you start becoming your own biggest fan.
Yeah, plan something kind for yourself. I find that people like to think of something they enjoyed when they were a little kid and do that, because when we're a little kid, we're so much better at choosing things that we just like. Yeah, eat a favorite food, watch a comfort show, watch something that makes you feel kind and lovely, and then go connect with somebody.
Yeah. Wonderful. Well, Ash, I am just so grateful that we got to have this conversation. We'd spent a little bit of time kind of kicking social media
We collectively.
I spent a little time kicking social media around a little bit. But where can we find you on social media?
Where can you find me on social media? You can find us at I Married Your Therapist on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. And you can email us at imarriedyourtherapist@gmail.com. And you can find me specifically, therapywith_Ash on Instagram.
Please be considerate of the things that you're following on social media.
Yeah.
If you think that we're worth your follow, that's fantastic. But also, make sure that you're following people that you think are being authentic and real. We're not. All that shit is bullshit. Like I've said before, I don't even speak English. This is a script I've memorized.
Impressive.
Well, Ash, thank you so much for your time.
Price, thank you for your time.
And we will see you next time on I Married Your Therapist. This one got kind of personal.
Yeah, got into some personal stuff.
I like it.
Not to mention the bunny story, which is very cute.
It's so cute. Imagine this, like, one technician, like, the scientists come in and they're like, what are you doing? Are you not feeding them correctly? And she's like, no, I love them. That's what I'm doing.
They're my bebés.
I love these little bunnies. It's very sweet.
Yeah.
Sushi?
Sushi.